We are the music makers, and we are the dreamers of dreams.
Assignments other than the Bob Mitchard table, right here, number 7. And we'd like to be seated so we can get our lunches served. We will be having our program honoring our good friend and top 10 honoree, Robert Mitchard. So that's really a good sign. He's really nervous, so we've got to be very careful. He may have to do his presentation from the bathroom. But anyhow, please enjoy your meal. And I'm a little surprised that a lot of the people that aren't wearing ties here today. There's one person in particular that's not wearing a tie. I won't tell you his name, but his initials are Chris Burke. And I'm sorry. And any of you consultants that are out there that might have an opening, I may be looking for one. So enjoy your meal, and the bar is going to remain open, so you don't have to be seated here all this time. And Jorge is doing a great job as our videographer and photographer. So enjoy your meal.
Everybody please get their seats. We're going to get started with our formal part of the program today. Welcome everybody. My name is John Briggs. I am the chapter president for Chicago Metro for the year 2018. Woohoo!
Yeah!
We're not here for me, but I appreciate that. Thank you. And we are here for a very important reason. We are here to celebrate one of our top 10 National Public Works Leaders of the Year recipients, that being Mr. Robert Bob Mitchard. The award itself is a national award. It started in 1960, and they only award 10 every year throughout the nation. So with the start of this year and this year's awardees, there have only been 580 throughout the country that have been awarded this honor. And in the chapter itself, we have been fortunate to receive now 38 of those, with the addition, 39, did I count wrong? Okay, 39, with the addition of this year's class. So I would like to have past winners, if they would please stand and be recognized for our past top 10 winners. Don't be shy. And as you can see, that the people in here, you do recognize, I'm sure a lot of them, they do stay active in the chapter, throughout their careers and even after they win. So Bob, you don't get to get out yet either. So we're going to need you on a few committees. I think education is one of them really important. Today we also have a couple of our national attendees here representing the APWA National. We have Dave Lowry. And they'll be presenting Bob his award a little bit later. So I am actually going to turn the mic over to Michelle Lipinski, who is your official MC for today. But I thank everybody for coming, and again, make sure we congratulate Bob throughout the day, because this is a very, very important award, very prestigious, and most of us will never have the opportunity. So congratulations to you.
All right.
Thank you, John. And in his wise words from Nan's Top 10 luncheon, I will be directing traffic today. So as John said, I'm Michelle Lipinski. In addition to being the Master of Ceremonies tonight, which is a pretty awesome honor, I'm also the President of the Fox Valley Branch. President of the Fox Valley Branch of APWA. So I want to welcome everybody here today and thank you for being here to help us celebrate Bob Mitchard, Top 10 Public Works Leader of the Year. I'll be as brief as I can and just wanted to let you know I have had the privilege of getting to know Bob through APWA and work. He's been a great mentor to me, being the president of the Fox Valley Branch right before me. And when we were talking about nominating people for the Top 10 award, Bob's name came up and it was a complete no-brainer, so to speak. Putting the application together was a little daunting. I knew I could fill many pages with Bob's accomplishments in APWA over the last 10 years that I've known you, or more. I mean, I'm not counting. Time has stopped for me, basically. But what I couldn't document was everything he's accomplished in his career up to this point before I knew him. So, with the help of Sandy, I put together a little covert dinner. We had a very good time to learn more about Bob and refresh my memory because he's such a good storyteller that I needed a little refresher on that. So we went out to dinner, and if you've ever hung out with Bob and Sandy Mitchard, I mean, you know, it's comedy gold. I mean, you just laugh the entire time. They are so much fun. And so at the dinner, Bob filled in the gaps unknowingly. It was a secret nomination. We just had a great time, talked about everything. And then when it came time to put the national application together, Bob did that. Did a ton of work. He put that together himself with the help of the marketing team at Chris Burke. There's a copy on every table. I encourage everybody to take a look just so you can get to know Bob a little bit better. It was never ending how much he's done in his career. So Bob is always putting others first, working tirelessly in the background to advance not only the technical side of our industry, but to advance the people that he works with on a daily basis. Bob is constantly mentoring, coaching, promoting, and boosting people up to be the best they can be. He knows that there are better ways to do things, and he sets his goals high. Bob is an amazing leader, dedicated father, husband, brother, and dear friend. I hope today you will get to know him a little bit better through this program that we've prepared. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce Bill Gannick, retired village manager for the Village at Algonquin.
Well, thank you. I'm honored. I'm sure everybody is going to stand up and say they're honored to be here, except maybe Steve Ludwig. But to recognize Bob and the well-deserved award, national award, Top 10 leader. I worked with Bob for 18 years, probably half of his professional career. And I can truly say I learned more from Bob on leadership than he learned from me. I started with the village with 3 years of experience. He had 12. He was a true leader in the true sense of the term. He dedicated his public service like no one else I know. He inspired excellence in the field of public works. He is innovative, striving for efficiency like no one else. He's a champion of many phases of public service, not just public works. Bob would be the first to admit that his dedicated staff has as much to do as acclaim recognition. Oh, what staff he has. Many of them here.
Yeah.
Good for you. It was Bob Mitchard that hired this staff, helped their growth, harnessed their creative knowledge, their wisdom, creativity. Bob created a culture of collaboration and inclusion. Like most leaders, Bob wasn't born into leadership. There are many types of leaders or how they've learned to become leaders, but there's three I mentioned. Number one, trained to be a leader through education, experience, and a mentor. Number two, they have a passion like no other. They may have a desire to help other people. And number three, they might be forced into that role under critical situations. In other words, they seize the opportunity when it's most needed. And I believe Bob is the leader he is today because of all three of these factors. Now, there's way too many things I could talk about in 18 years and accomplishments, so I'll try to explain Bob's leadership, at least in my experience, through a few short stories, or as I call them, chapters in my little book here. And I'll run through the chapters as quickly as we can, because I know a lot of people are going to have more to talk about. Chapter 1, Genesis. Is that a little too far? Why did we hire Bob? Well, as I mentioned, Algonquin was my first position as an administrator. I had little or no experience as an administrator. And this is in the early 90s. Are there people born? And I've said this and I'll say this today, if I had more experience in public administration and budgeting and all those type of things, I would not have taken the job. Algonquin was a Wild West town, and it was on the edge, if not already, of becoming a boom town. So here we go. We have possible uncontrolled growth in the region. We have an old town. Combining these two situations is extremely volatile. The community was void of real leadership on multiple levels. The village board was going through what we would call council wars. No real public works direction except for two superintendents. One for streets, one for water and sewer. They did their own thing, whatever is expedient at the time, but certainly not working together was one of them. Elected officials, local community organizations, while well-intentioned, stepped in to fill the void of leadership and direction. They tried to raise funds for the aged downtown. They raised some funds, and what did we get? We had some handmade banners for the downtown. Success. Public Works was not given the necessary priority it deserved. Streets and equipment were overextended, beyond reasonable maintenance life cycle. Parks and open space were subpar. The existing population, not to mention the thousands of new residents that were on the books for the pending subdivisions that were pending. And without a park district, their maintenance was left to independent sports organizations that needed to use them and demanded, probably rightfully so, complete control of these fields because they maintained them. This was the village of Algonquin. We had a sewer lift station. This one will bring tears to my eyes. Which would fail often, allowing raw sewage to backflow into residential basements. Now, to be fair, there were problems, like a heavy rainfall, a lightning strike. Oh, and probably the most damaging was the mouse chewing on the electrical lines. And you haven't lived, and I know there's a lot of public works people, but you have not lived until you're at a public meeting and there's residents that are sitting before you, this is public participation, telling you how raw sewage is in their basement. But there's progress. There's a foot less the third or fourth time. This is Algonquin pre-Bob. New home construction with newly installed sod to water drained our water storage facilities and caused our wells to be pumped below their reach. The water had so much yellow and green color that we only half joked, prohibiting white colored bathtubs so mothers didn't have to see the tinted water when they bathed their children. We needed a public works director. Chapter 2. Leadership by training with passion for public service and thrust upon Bob. Chapter 2. Even as inexperienced as I was, it was clear the community needed some leadership in the area of public works. Thus, the public board wisely, maybe a little direction, created a new position of public works director. The long-established consulting village engineer fussed that the public works director only costs the community more money. And that could be spent on infrastructure, and that was true. Heck with that. It was obvious that any leadership was needed in public works. Bob truly wasn't the first. I would call it, we had an 8-month false start with the first public works director, so it doesn't really count, 8 months, not really. So Bob, for all practical purposes, was our first public works director. There were not many applicants due to the reputation of Algonquin being a Wild West town with no money and a greenhorn administrator. Who would really want to apply to that? Well, I think Bob only interviewed because he felt some internal obligation since he happened to move into the community recently. And it's just like Bob, some devotion to community he recently called home. Same old Bob. He hasn't changed. He's still there after all this. Along with the usual cover letter and resume was something really special. To this day, I remember it, maybe not as clearly as I did several years ago, too many hits to the head, that there was a letter, and it wasn't addressed to anyone in particular. It wasn't the cover letter, it wasn't the resume, it was just a letter that expressed stuff. It expressed his interest in public works. It was something I never forget. He explained how he grew up in the area and his first job as a public works director, before certainly I was an administrator in North Riverside. He talked about residents sweeping their sidewalks and talked of neighbors as family members, even if they didn't know the neighbors. He spoke fondly about learning and working with his father in the field of public works. He expressed pride and love, commitment to family, serving the public. His passion and work ethic came through. He didn't need the damn resume. That's all we had to read. Now, either the guy was the biggest bull. Is there cameras? And his passion came through. We were drowning. We'll take, a life preserve if we can. Is this really too good to be true? Could this guy really have this desire? Could this person really want to work in this Wild West boom town? There's challenges ahead. The interview confirmed that this is who Bob is, then as he is today. We thought, we had our public works director. Check off box 1. I talked about being trained. His public works father taught him what to do, how to be passionate. He continued his passion for public service. Number 2, even with these strong leadership qualities we saw in the interview, what about number 3? Leadership under crisis. We knew he was going to face crisis. We didn't tell him. He knew, though. He didn't live in town very long, and being a public works director, they have their eyes. You know how that works. He knew what was wrong, but I don't think he knew how deep it was. He will be extremely challenged, and we will see how his leadership skills will hold up. He took the job. Best thing that ever happened to me. Probably for my career. He was someone who really wanted to take on the Wild West boomtown. Or was he naive like I was for taking the job? Bob had vision, plans, projects, organization. There's a problem. He had much more ideas than we had money. What I didn't want to hold back, I didn't want to hold him back, but we needed to crawl before he walked, let alone Bob's need to run. Although frustrated by the slower progress than he had wanted, he showed patience. During, I think, one of his moments of peak of frustration, and there were probably very many, he explained to me he feels like a plate spinner. Anybody not know what a plate spinner is? Anybody? Really? You all know? All you young folk know what a plate spinner is? Thank you. Good, I don't have to describe it on the stage here.
Show us.
I got a plate.
Give me a plate and a stick. No. You know, plate spinners were the jugglers of, Ed Sullivan. Yeah. When they would run down, they have way too many sticks and plates, and they have to keep running back. It was the most descriptive thing I've ever, to this day. I go, Bob, put less plates up, And he was putting so many plates up, he kept running back, so they're wobbled, and they're gonna fall. Bob, don't, shoot for the stars quite yet. We'll get there, maybe. Driven by necessity or therapy over 1 or 2 beers. I'll stop at 2 beers. An unwritten approach became, and Bob always had it from day one, do it right. The other thing, we certainly talked and agreed upon is how can we improve the department and thus the community today? What can we do today? Put today's together and, lo and behold, they add up. We have visions, plans, projects, organizations will eventually happen. This is true leadership, setting goals, getting results orientated, adjust when necessary. Chapter 3. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Or the retirement and replacement of Fred. Fred was part of the village for a long time. Very old, tired. He was symbolic of the lack of commitment within staff. A public works culture that did not care whether they worked or not. Preferably not. Fred was here before Bob. Who was Fred? He was the infamous name of the pickup truck. He had more rust, lovable Fred, had more rust than paint and no floorboards. This was an example of the equipment Public Works was using. Fred was a symbol of what was going on in the department. Bob had to scrape up money in a very tight budget to get rid of Fred and buy new trucks. That was one today action. The next days was we're buying more equipment. We're getting better equipment. We're finding money. We had to. Priorities changed. Bob made it a priority. I bought into it. I saw it. The village board bought into it. They saw it. This simple step of one bite at a time, sending multiple messages to staff, community and elected officials as well. Safety for staff first. Take pride in your work. Expectations of work quality. Like our new equipment, we are going to be efficient for the job and do it right. The simple early learning experience evolved over time. We now, from that little step of replacing Fred, maintained an entire fleet department, cooperating with other government and agencies like the fire service. Lesson on leadership. Making small improvements today is the first step to vision of excellence for tomorrow. Bob did not lose sight. Chapter 4. Getting close to the end. Bathrooms, drinks. Leadership under fire in the Wild West. Public Works staff, as they were, had, for lack of a better term, what I think was a locker room, but it seemed to be in the wastewater treatment plant. Pride was not the top of the list for the staff who used this place. One particular employee was far below standards of Bob expectations. Termination was justified. Following this action, Bob received threatening telephone calls to his home from the terminated employee. Clearly a very serious instrument that rippled through Bob, his family, the village organization. To make matters worse, the public work crew were interested in hunting, going to shooting ranges, or abandoned gravel pits in the area to shoot stones. Historically, as a general practice, the crew brought their hobby to work. Now picture this. These are the guys that need some discipline, that are not accustomed to it. There's a new public works sheriff in town, in this Wild West town, and they have a hobby within arm's reach. Keeping any kind of weapons in a cramped locker room in the wastewater treatment plant where tempers were known to flare was suddenly adding another level of concern in this crisis of threat. Forced with some personal stress that Bob faced mainly for the safety of his family, he had exercised a strong hand and acted decisively. Yada, 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 yada. Problem solved. You have to yada, yada through that. On a side note, when the police department inspected the locker room, they said Public Works had a better arsenal than the police department and talk about leadership under fire. Chapter 5, the holistic approach. Algonquin grew as fast from 1995 to 2008, more than most communities, not only in the state, but in the country. We used to follow the top 10 growing countries, and it was a boom time for a lot of communities. We were in the top 10. And adding subdivisions almost literally monthly, and the miles of road that have to be maintained, adds stress to a public works operation. Not to mention the stress to the population, the community, the staff, the elected officials that have to deal with the old town people saying it's not what it used to be, and the new town people saying it's not what it was like from whatever subdivision they came from or city. It was stressful. It took Bob's leadership, vision, and problem solving to take us through this critical period. It demanded utilities expansion, stormwater management, recreational needs, transportation, equipment maintenance, many more issues than we even have time. But it was Bob's resolve, dogged perseverance that drives him, that would have it happen as smoothly as it had. And to grow from when Bob started, maybe it was 13, 15,000 people to over 30,000 people is very stressful in a short period of time. And for those of you, there's a few here that might remember the Vietnam War. During the 1970s, as they were trying to find a way out of Vietnam, there was a saying that went around, peace with honor. Well, in the 1990s, early 2000, we felt that stress of growth, and it just was relentless pouring in on us. So we created a new term, growth with grace. See, it has a nice ring to it. And seriously, there's not many communities that could have that growth. People get voted out of office, staff get fired. It's what happens when there's a lot of growth. But we handled this growth. We had very stable elected officials. We were solving people's problems with the growth because of Bob and his staff that actually made it growth with grace. In maybe the silliest terms, but that doesn't mean, we didn't have failures. Failures occur. But Bob was certainly the leader of, okay, we made a mistake, he'll own up to it, whether it was his responsibility or not, and we're gonna move on and make it better next time. He exerted a quiet, subtle influence on a day-to-day basis. He lifted everyone to a higher level of performance, achievement, and awareness. not only did Bob lead Public Works, but he had influences in other operations of the city, and this is the holistic part of it. He would question, why do we need all this paper? Why do we have all these steps? How can we make the budget more efficient? Bill, you idiot. And I didn't take it that way. He questioned these things. Let's use technology. You know him, you know. Probably in another world he'd be a geek. Or maybe he is now. Can we make technology mobile? And this was before smartphones, you know? Really, this guy, you know, and you know, I'm old, duh. He was a champion of technology, but not only for Public Works, he questioned all the departments. And you know, that's rare. You know, I'm the manager, I'm supposed to be doing some of that. Maybe all of it. Bob, you know, he was honest, I won't say to a fault, but he was honest. I mean, he was a mentor to me. He would challenge me. Maybe he didn't know he was challenging me, but I was challenged. He looked at the efficiency of what software and technology and systems organizations could provide us. He was well ahead of us in many ways. In fact, I think we had to hire IT people just to keep up with Bob. It wasn't that he wasn't inventing any new approaches, but he wanted to be up front. You know, organizations like APWA, you know, plug, is where he learned to challenge and push the edge a little bit. Now this is a leader, one who continually does this over time. Chapter 6, epilogue. That means the end. Bob's fingerprints are all over the community. Just drive Algonquin and observe. Thoughtful attention to detail, design, efficiency, from everything to the beautifully functional Public Works facility. By the way, the building is a long way from replacing Fred and the locker room and the wastewater treatment plant. He's starting I don't know how far he is into the elephant, but he's eating away at the elephant pretty well. There's aesthetic signage throughout. He even created a sign shop because he was frustrated that, you know, we always, as towns were growing, roads, speed limits, oh, they're speeding, blah, blah, blah. We needed signs like this. He created a sign shop. He made signs, making signs for other communities. You know, who does that? This is a town, you know, Wild West, not anymore. There's environmentally sensitive treatments to wetlands and stormwater facilities recognized by the DNR. Parks, creativity, design and maintenance, connection of bike trails through the community, landscaping along the hills, public roads, which make up our travelways and the quality of life for our residents. Even the utility manhole covers has Bob attention to detail with village logos. You see the influence of Bob's leadership, quality of staff he nurtured for the best of us in the community. Bob values excellence in performance. He builds something bigger than many of us imagined. He exemplifies the 3 H's of leadership. Humility, Bob can be humble sometimes. Honesty sometimes made me cringe when city council or when the village board asked questions. He was, not that he should be honest, he's too honest. He used to see my head drop, he could see my bald spot, which was a sign that, Bob, you're being too honest. And hard work. 3 H's, humility, honesty, hard work. You have those 3, I think you could probably handle anything. Bob and his staff not only made Public Works the best it could be, but we also saw in many different areas of our organization being influenced all to the better. Closing, finally, a proverb, I think it's from the Art of War, my memory slips me, but I do repeat this many times. A leader is best when people barely know he exists. Not so good when people obey and acclaim him. Worse when they despise him. But a good leader who talks little, when his work is done, his aim fulfilled, they will say, "We did it ourselves." Well, Bob, we may think we did it ourselves, and you know you did not accomplish this alone. But what I can say is we could not have done it without you. National Top 10 leader for APWA, Bob Mitchard, thank you.
Thank you, Bill. I love that you guys called it a Wild West town. I learned about that at the dinner, and also when I called our next speaker on the phone, that was also the description that I got, that Bob tamed that Wild West town. So our next speaker, please welcome Michelle Zimmerman, Assistant Director of Public Works for the Village of Algonquin.
Keep it close. I'm gonna need my glasses too. Oh, Bob. So this is going to be kind of short and sweet for a couple of reasons. First of all, I wasn't sure it would be, I had a longer speech. Wasn't sure if it would be appropriate to talk about a lot of the stuff, being that our HR director is here and we have all our staff has all signed off on the sexual harassment. Therefore, short and sweet speech. Secondly, Bill Gannick spoke before me and Steve Ludwig is speaking after me, so cue Jerry and Jerry. They're my laughter applause crowd there. So anyway, with that, good afternoon. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Michelle Zimmerman, and I'm the Assistant Public Works Director, also known as the Mad Deleter, the Organizer, the Voice of Sanity, and Bob's right-hand woman. So I've known Bob for 23 years, which I've worked for him for all of these 23 years. And that brings us to why all of us are here. Anyone who knows Bob, which we all do, knows that this award is really not a surprise. It was just a matter of time before you were recognized for all of your amazing, amazing accomplishments. Algonquin is an extremely, extremely dynamic community, as Bill alluded to. From a public works perspective, really it has everything. It's like 5 or 6 different agencies and organizations rolled into one. We've got water treatment and production, wastewater treatment, parks and recreation, because we don't have a park district, 2 state highways, 3 major county arterials, a big old major river going through the middle of town, along with all the regular public works stuff like streets and forestry and internal services. Now throw in, again, what Bill talked about, the actual changes that happened in Algonquin in the last 23 years. Going from a town of about 10,000, the Wild West town, to over 30,000, seemingly overnight. And with that came so many challenges. I'm not going to go into all those challenges and details, but let's just say that we no longer have vehicles that we nickname Old Stinky. We no longer come in to sandbag and flip-flops. And we don't salt the roads through the rusted floorboards in the pickup trucks and hold the doors closed with bungee cords. My point here is that Bob had to take the Public Works Department and kind of start all over with it. He had to transform Algonquin Public Works into a professional organization that was filled with integrity, values, and knowledge. I've watched him through this whole transformation, and we all know that the job is not easy. It is all-consuming. Yet he accomplished all of this almost seamlessly, and he actually made it seem rather easy, at least for my eyes. Under Bob's leadership, our public works customer service, it's now absolutely top-notch. Our elected officials and citizens, they trust our ability to do the right thing with efficiency, effectiveness, and professionalism. My observation of Bob's success comes from looking beyond the things that can be quantified in numbers, statistics, and degrees. It really, really comes from seeing his ability to be a human being, to see things from all the points of view, whether it's our staff, our customers, our elected officials, all around everybody. He really has been there to continuously remind us of our role in the community and the importance of our jobs, and especially to have a little grace about it and a lot of laughs. Bob dots the I's and crosses the T's on everything, which I'm not really sure how he does, because if you've ever seen his office, it's impossible to find a pen on his desk. And trust me, I've tried many times to clean and organize it. And gotten in big trouble for that. I'm proud to say that Bob has been my mentor, my best friend, and my colleague. I've marveled at his career and contribution to public works beyond what I could imagine. In view of his long, successful career, I propose a toast to this truly great man. Bob, cheers. I cannot imagine a worthier person to achieve this recognition. Cheers.
You're here. Next up, we have Steve Ludwig, the General Services Superintendent for the Village of Algonquin.
Hey! Hey! How's it going? Good. Can you hear me? No. Do I need a microphone? No. I can't tell if that's a yes or a no. You told me I could say whatever I wanted as long as it was true. You remember that, right? Okay. I have, it's funny already, isn't it? I've always believed that we're a mosaic, a collection of the wisdom that we've experienced over the course of our lives. And over the course of my life, I have gone around with a bucket collecting these snippets of wisdom that now make me the person that I am and the light that I reflect in the world. And I thought it would be appropriate to stand up here this morning and talk about the snippets of wisdom that I have gained in 22 years of working with Bob Mitchard. So it starts like this. When I got hired for this position, Bob loves to tell the story. There was two people that were in the running for the job that I got in Algonquin when I started. One was very qualified and the other was me. And Bob tells the story that the other guy was a lock for the position. He had every qualification in the world. And then when he tells the story, the guy came in to interview and he was very, very drunk. I subsequently got the job. So from Bob I learned sometimes none of the education in the world matters as long as you show up sober.
Bob began his career in North Riverside. We heard him talking about that. He's very, very proud of his work there. He mentions it often, so often you would think that he hasn't done anything worthy since. But he talks about it with pride as a mode to push us to be the best and to succeed and to do things really well. And when he talks about North Riverside and his high expectation for the quality of work that he wants us to do in Algonquin, he's very, very passionate about that. So when he talks about those things, what I learned from Bob is it's not the past that we should be longing for. We should long for the effort and the changes that make us proud of the present. He's very, very good at pushing that. He never wants to stop. He loves to drive around town and tell you how we can consistently be better. Some of you may know that Bob had some recent health issues, and I don't want to get into that too much, but some of his recent issues caused him to have to keep his face forward like this. And it's horrible and it's embarrassing to walk around like this all the time. But he came to work anyway. I'm going to talk about an example of a leader as somebody who's struggling with this horrible health issue, frustrated, aggravated, scared, upset, nervous. We were all of those things just like he was as he walked around our halls like this, sitting in meetings, at tables, like this, but he was there, setting the example, making us reflect. So in that circumstance, what I learned from Bob is you never know whom you're going to speak with each day. It's best to wear clean and presentable shoes. Bob and I share a love of language, and we tend to utilize some great words and phrases. I love that about Bob. I appreciate his vocabulary very much, and we're regularly noting each other's great use of words. We absolutely love words. The other day I used a phrase, and the phrase is, "It's a red herring." And Bob didn't know what the phrase was, and I thought it was very good in our relationship because the phrase, "It's a red herring," actually became a red herring, which it's a weird kind of thing, isn't it? That's kind of what we do, right? I know, it's getting even more bizarre. It's great. For those of you who don't know Bob very well, he really hates it when attention is drawn to him. So. Some of you know that Bob is a big baseball fan. Anybody in the room ever been to a baseball game with Bob? If I get a show of hands, if you could raise your hand. You ever been to a baseball game with Bob? Then those of you with your hand in the air will understand this. From Bob, I have learned that getting home from Wrigley Field can take 6 hours and leave you with stories that you cannot tell in public. I know. Thought about that a little bit, didn't you? My wife told me to say something really nice. Got that out of the way. Bob and I have a love of music. It's baffling to me how many of the same artists we have in our collections. At one point, we exchanged our list of desert island discs. Do you know what that is? If you're stuck on a desert island and you could only bring 10 CDs with you or albums with you, if I'm dating myself, which ones would you bring? Because they're high quality, high caliber songs. And we traded that list, and he has some great, great music. I have some really crazy, bizarre music that really disturbs him, I think. But we exchanged that, but here's the thing that we've done in our relationship, and what I learned from Bob is that life needs an excellent soundtrack. Life needs an excellent soundtrack. I share with Bob the important knowledge that music feeds the soul. And the one thing I love about our building when you walk through it is you hear music, because life needs an excellent soundtrack, and I love that fact. Bob has an excellent sense of humor. I love the fact that one of our favorite inside jokes is a connection to the Three Stooges. Occasionally, childlike behavior is essential to keep us from falling apart. From Bob, I have learned that no matter our struggles, laughter is a great joy of life. Michelle said it, and it's true. We laugh where we are. We deal with a lot of ungrateful people, and we deal with some challenging work. Bob is the king of keeping us laughing, keeping us loose, and reminding us that it's just work. So I love that. Laughter is a great joy of life. I've always been amazed at what Bob knows. His technical knowledge is amazing. What he knows about process and procedures, techniques, material, and equipment is just impressive. I'll never be able to catch up. He knows so much stuff. I cannot tell you how many times we'll sit in a plan review meeting and he says, we need to change that. I don't want you to have to maintain a poor design for the rest of your career. From Bob, I have affirmed that using your gifts to make the lives of others better is very, very important. And he's made the lives of a lot of people much, much better. And that's pretty cool. Early in my career, I experienced some conflict with my then supervisor. I was a bit upset and I ended up in Bob's office. He quietly mentored me and he said this, and I'll never forget it. It's probably the first month I was there as a new supervisor. And he said, you can't have such thin skin, Steve, you'll never make it. So what I learned from Bob is, you can't have such thick skin because you'll never make it. Bob has always been a good man. He has a compassionate heart. He's always been able to give people the benefit of the doubt, sometimes even to his detriment. From Bob, I have learned that everyone has a bucket of crap. It's true, right? Everybody say amen. Sometimes we need to come alongside them rather than condemn them. I was very good at coming alongside people that need a little bit of help. Bob is a stickler for detail and consistently tries to get people to see the work product from his point of view. I know this is one of his major frustrations, and it has been for the last 22 years that I've been working there. So, something that Bob can learn from me. If it weren't for us stupid people, you wouldn't be so smart. I could spend all afternoon telling you stories about Bob. For me, it's not so much really what he has done. It's about who he is as a person. Only when we figure out how to be a good person does an amazing career such as this have the potential to follow. In closing, when I taught my children how to identify good friends, I thought it was my job to teach them how to identify who good people are. And I use several different methods of doing that. And one of that, some of you have heard me say, when you look at your friends, your mentors, the people that you want to spend your time with, throw them up against the Boy Scout law. Is he trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent? And if we look at those things and we hang out with people that are those things or striving to become those things, then we're hanging out with some really good people. I think Bob does that pretty well. But there's another thing that I used to teach my kids about weighing out who good people are. It's another lesson. And it involves scripture as well, Bill. Thanks for setting the stage for that. It involves scripture, and I'm sure sometimes Bob doesn't appreciate that, which is exactly why I'm doing it. It's the traditional reading from weddings, from Corinthians, and it's about love. And what I taught my kids was, if you put the name of the person that you're assessing in the place of the word love, then you can really define who that person is. So I'll share it with you. It's the Steve Ludwig lame version of 1 Corinthians for my boss, Bob. Bob is patient. Bob is kind. Bob is not jealous. Bob does not brag and is not arrogant. Bob does not act unbecomingly, tongue-in-cheek. Bob does not seek his own. Bob is not provoked. Bob does not take into account a wrong suffered. Bob does not rejoice in unrighteousness, but rejoices in truth. Bob bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. Bob never fails. But now faith, hope, and Bob abide. These three. But the greatest of these is Bob.
Write that down, everybody. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Michelle. Next up, we have Tom Talsma, Frank Trapiccio, and John Hines. So settle in. Retired public works directors and also top 10 winners as well. And what?
Where's the Lord Boucher? That's a hell of an act of follow.
Yeah, you got that. Let's see.
Okay, you got the three amigos here. Believe me, I'm honored to be able to make a few comments about my friend Bob Mitchard. This is one heck of a day, Robert. I'm so happy this day has finally come. There's no greater honor, and you'll hear this maybe several times, there's no greater honor for somebody in a professional career to receive this recognition and prestigious award from your peers. Believe me, the bar is set pretty high. We all know that you are an outstanding public works director, Bob. Now all of North America knows it as well. As we prepare for Bob's nomination package, which was a real exercise in love, he'd often share that it was really difficult for him. He was uncomfortable being able to blow his own horn. We had to keep encouraging him, and he did a great job with it. He definitely doesn't enjoy the limelight, and he doesn't seek the limelight. And he always tends to shy away from that. But this is your day, pal. Sit back and enjoy every minute of it. It'd be a blast to roast you. We could do a good job of it. Heaven knows we all have some hilarious stories that we could share in that regard. However, I'm going to leave it to the after party for that.
Thank you.
But seriously, in reflecting on Bob's career, there are certain words and characteristics that readily come to mind that I'd like to share with you. I'm sure you'll all confirm them. Professional, Bob's the ultimate professional. His knowledge of public works and what it takes technically and interpersonally. He's caring, and I think we all have stories about Bob and how he feels about the people he works with and loves them and cares about what is happening to them. Bob is innovative. He does not shy away from taking risks, evaluating new opportunities, new technologies, and applying them. And I can't emphasize that leadership is really found many of those same characteristics. He's an advocate, not only within our profession, APWA and what have you, but he's an advocate for all his team. Everybody on his team, he's always propping them up. He's got their back, whether it's with a resident, whether it's with other problems that they might be taking care of. He's right there helping them out. He's proud. He is proud of Algonquin, man. And Bill said it very distinctly earlier that he's a great mentor, and not least of which is Bob is a friend. He's probably a good friend to everybody in this room. Signs of Bob's leadership, this is the one thing that I wanted to get across to everybody today. Signs of Bob's leadership as a public works director can be seen all over the village of Algonquin. And you don't have to look very far to identify a multitude of them. On many occasions, Bob and I have had conversations regarding many of the examples that I've observed as my work brought me to Algonquin. One main characteristic repeatedly came to my mind as I admired Bob's work as a public works leader is that he cares. He really, really cares about his family, his community, and his team of talented managers and employees. Takes great pride in making Algonquin something special, and I think everybody that's close to it knows that that's true. When I would bring up examples in our conversations with Bob of quality service delivery that I recognized or that I read about on the webpage or on Facebook or in the newspapers, he explained to me how he would mentor his team members on the finer points that distinguish Bob's level of service and his expectations, and left them with a clear vision of how he likes to see things done. I've been there. I think I've tried to share many of those same principles, but Bob has done it, and we all can see those signs. I'll spare you with a litany of all the things, the individual items that comprise Bob's standards of excellence. Suffice it to say, Bob knows how high he wants to set the bar and how to challenge everybody on his team to achieve those goals. I'm proud to be your friend and your professional colleague, and you have done one hell of a job, Bob. Thank you.
I can't begin to thank you for having this opportunity to be standing here in this place today. It means a lot. God bless us all. 2 months ago, Bob asked Tom, John, and I if we would speak. Obviously, we totally agreed. I wanted this afternoon to focus on 2 words, the relationships, and then I'd like to close with family. How did Bob get here? It's through his relationships. 23 years with the village of Algonquin and only 2 mayors and stable boards. That's a huge tribute. Coming from the top, that direction, that vision, that's really rare and that's really amazing. Congratulations to those boards and to you, Mayor. And then for the opportunity that Bob had to work with Bill Gannick for 18 years, that again is a very, very rare and special opportunity, and I'll get back to that in a minute. And 5 years with Tim, and that is a work in progress. They're currently embarked on a legacy project in that downtown that the two of them and the boards are going to leave their fingerprint on. So that is going to be exciting to watch how that unfolds. We've heard from many of us this afternoon about the long-term public works staff and also the APWA network. Those relationships are so vitally important. We heard speeches from Steve and Michelle, a testament to the mentorship and what Bob's leadership and what his personality and his vision has meant to those individuals that spoke and to those individuals that are in that organization. And the duration and length of time that they have worked at the village, that is a very special tribute. The special relationship with Bill Gannick. Bob and Bill coming together during this intense development years, both on public projects as well as private projects, again, is just incredible. You two guys made one amazing team. Then development of the public works team, the daily mentoring. I mean, think about how lucky Michelle and Steve are and were at the time to have Bob, to spend more time with Bob, except for Sandy, well, sometimes. Very awesome, though, to have that opportunity to work with somebody that special. That daily mentoring of individuals and fostering an environment for these folks to reach the full potential and be the best they possibly can be. And that carries on through his entire staff. All this is possible because of Bob's ability to follow direction. I'd like to share an example of that with you. This was several years ago. Bob and I had an opportunity to play golf in Phoenix. And it was on a Saturday. It was late morning, and I think we're on the second or third hole, and he snap hooks a drive so far left. Yeah, I think the ball is in Mexico. So he gets in the cart, and he's kind of mumbling, and we're driving along the fairway where the edge of the grass meets the desert, and there's these signs. And it says, "Danger, do not enter." And then it's got a tarantula and a scorpion and a rattlesnake underneath the sign. So there's many of these signs as we go along. So we pull up where his ball went in, and he jumps out of the cart and he grabs a golf club. And I said, whoa. Where are you going? I'm going to get my ball. So he starts walking. So I said, Bob, he said, "Shut up, Trapezio." So my compassion meter that was sitting over here, pegged on, "Oh man, I'm feeling sorry for Bob," just went all the way down to, "I don't give a shit what." So Bob's a pretty big guy. He starts walking into the desert. It looks like a Sasquatch. Pretty soon I can't see him anymore. So how far, the curvature of the earth, looking at me. So where did the desert squatch end up? So a short while later, I hear this scream like a little girl. And it's Bob, and he says, "A cactus just jumped out and bit me on the leg." So all of a sudden, I'm like, I'm in a happy place. I got a smile stuck on my face that I can't stop. And my brain's going, "I told you so, I told you so." So he gets back in the cart. He doesn't say a word walking in, and he looks at me and he says 4 words. "I need a beer." So I share that story with you because, Bill, I'm telling you, for all the years that you worked with Bob, to keep him focused on outstanding, and to keep him tail focused and keep him on direction. That's you did a yeoman's job. In closing, I'd like to tell you why I think we're here, and that's the love and support Bob has given and received from his close friends and family. It's through this effort that has enabled Bob to reach the pinnacle of success. His friends include neighbors, work associates, and some through sports. His beautiful wife, Sandy, they're still in love. Well, most of the time. if she could pull a fry pan out of her purse, she would crown him from time to time. Then the most important two people in the room today is Gordy and Alyssa. You two mean so much to your dad, you have no idea. He is so very proud of both of you and could not live without the love and support from you. So congratulations, Bob, on being named Top 10 Public Works Leader of the Year. That recognition is so well deserved. But to me, you're a top 10 friend, a top 10 husband, and a top 10 father. God bless you, Bob Mitchard.
Okay, how do we top that? What did you say, Michelle? Settle in?
Yes,
Settle in, yeah. Mr. Gannick had 6 chapters. My last name is Hines. I've got 57 chapters. Settle in. There's been a little bit of an over-under. I see there's Dr. Burke back there looking at his watch. I'm sure he's got a stopwatch on his phone going. There was an over-under contest on the 4th floor, and I've got 4 of my bosses here, and this is going to be a struggle for me, but it's about Bob. So one of the things I want to say is Bob did not want this nomination. I had talked to him for years about being nominated for Top 10 because, as you've heard from many people, it is an honor that is beyond words. In our careers, it is the top of the top of the top. And he didn't want it. He didn't want to see it. He didn't want to have it. Michelle Lipinski, cute young girl that she is, Bob, why don't we nominate you for Top 10? Bob says, okay. Well done, Michelle. That's why you're the president of the Fox Valley branch. She was the key. So Tom Talsman, myself, and Michelle assisted Bob. We couldn't fit all the different items and accomplishments that Bob had during his career in the application. And this is not to blow Bob's head up, but I told him, Tom told him, because we've been through it before, you need to write down all the things you've done in your career and then start picking off the ones you want to have in there. So he wrote down all these different things, and all I wanted him to do was bullet points. But he's like his sister, and he had to write a story about all of them. Page after page after page. He's, John, I'm going to send this to you. I get it. It's like a 40-page document. Yeah, just to start. I'm like, oh. My wife's like, what are you reading? It's Bob 10's Top 10 application. Oh, my God. So I go, Bob, this is not going to fit in the page limits. You got to pare this back. No, I can't do it. Give it to Michelle Harford from Seabell. She'll take care of it. Lo and behold, she took care of it and did an awesome job. Wonderful. Way to go, Michelle. The letters, okay, and the top 10 applications are on everybody's tables. If you haven't looked at it, it's not a bad thing just to take a quick peek at. All you have to do is read the letters in there. You're only allowed 6 letters. I suggested to Bob to make sure you ask people for more, because some people might be a little late getting them to you, or they might not write something that is really what you were kind of expecting. So he got several of them. But the ones that he had in here are top 10 letters, and I mean that of the letters that can be written. One was from Bill Gannick. Unbelievable. When I read it, it was, I had tears welling up in my eyes because I know the affection that these two have for themselves, or for themselves. I'm sorry. Chris, I'm sorry. I'm glad he's not the administrator anymore. Work out the window. But for each other. I mean, I know they have a mutual respect and an unbelievable friendship, and I don't really know Bill that well, but I'm reading this thing and it's unbelievable. Mayor Schmidt, second in line on the letters. unbelievable. I know from meeting him over the last several years since I've retired, he gushes over Bob. I mean, gushes. And it's the truth. He says it all the time. I've seen him at meetings even very recently about this. Unbelievable. Victor Ramirez, where are you, Victor? Back here. Victor used to work with Bob in Lake Zurich. Victor wrote an unbelievable letter, and I didn't realize what their relationship was either. But Victor called Bob a mentor, like Bill called Bob a mentor, and I call Bob a mentor, and everybody's been calling Bob a mentor. Steve and Jason both wrote a co-letter that was awesome. Michelle wrote a letter, and then myself, Tom, Frank, and David Lowry wrote a letter from our personal and professional relationships with Bob, and those alone could be enough. He was challenged in all the places that he worked, and not a lot of people have talked about the projects, and I won't bore you with a lot of them. There's a couple of them that I want to mention. He worked in the deep tunnel early in his career as one of the youngest public works directors ever in North Riverside. Deep tunnel. It's one of the top 10 public works projects of the century. And Bob is involved in that at age 13, 14. So he was the canary they put down there. If he passed out, I'm just kidding. So, but Bob he worked on this deep tunnel project with the sanitary district, and it was, that's an epic situation. He walked into it, he worked on it, and it was really an interesting story to read, and it was a long story, I might tell you. So he did not have a big staff in North Riverside, and his staff was a little ragtag, but he brought the standards up to an unbelievable level there. I know that. He also did a lot of facilities and buildings. As engineers, raise your hand as an engineer if you like to build a building. I don't see many hands going up. Go ahead, Carl, you can have it, pal. So, but building buildings is the worst freaking job there is. Putting stuff underground, building roads, even treatment plants are better than building a building, because everybody's got an opinion of the trim and the lighting and the lights. And my wife's a decorator, so she's going to kick me when I go back and sit down, but it's a pain in the butt. Bob did buildings in every single town that he worked in. Every one of them. He did a municipal complex in North Riverside, again, as a 13-year-old, and it was unbelievable. It was made out of Legos, which was very nice. But honestly, it was a public works facility, a village hall, a Parks and Recs facility, and I'm telling you, when I read all this stuff, as onerous as it may have been to read, but I read it with love, it was really something. Lake Zurich, he did a new public works facility that he built into a wetland, and there's nobody from the Army Corps here, is there? Nobody? Okay. We could get you out of that. I think we have enough people around that can handle that. But build a public works facility. That was a ragtag public works facility when it started. Where's Mike Brown? He's back there, right, Mike? Horrible facility, boom, brought it up to another standard. And then Algonquin, the palace on the hill. Unbelievable. Come on. Hey, Heinz, come on up and see my public works facility if you want to see a nice public works facility. So I didn't really know much about it. I started driving. I don't have a four-wheel drive vehicle. And you're driving up this mountain, and then you get to the top of the hill and you look, and you can see the freaking world. I'm like, holy mackerel, why didn't they develop this property? What were you guys thinking? But I think it's all right, Gannick raises his hand.
We got the land for free.
Well, there you go. There you go. And you'll notice, ever since I went on that property, I started losing my hair. So there's a problem with that property. But he built these facilities. Projects that he had with political challenges. The Route 31 project, the bypass in Algonquin. All right, I'm in Barrington. I worked here for 18 years as Director of Public Works. I can't use the B word in Barrington because I probably would have get canned. Right, Larry? Yeah, he knows all about it. But Bob had the wherewithal to bring a team together and work with a team. And it wasn't just Bob, it was a whole bunch of people. But I know that he was the tip of the spear when it came to that project. That project saved downtown Algonquin, and you'll see that in the coming years. The Long Meadow Parkway, very controversial. If you look in here, you'll see a picture in here of people who have signs out on the side of the road. I challenge any public works director who's in here to have worked on a project where people are standing there and picketing your project. I mean, it never happened to me in 32 years. But, I mean, of course, Bob was involved in it. But anyhow, and they weren't picketing Bob. They were picketing the project. But it was a key east-west route. And Bob worked on that and tried to find common ground and everything else. And they're working on the last leg of that, I think, right now. And then there'll be a bridge and what have you. But maybe not. Did it get stopped today?
Ask Carl.
All right. There'll be a Q&A with Carl after this about the Long Meadow Parkway. And then the downtown Algonquin, or the old Algonquin project, which is really unbelievable. He's taking all of the infrastructure and replacing all of it. He's taking all the overhead wiring, anybody who's ever had to do that, overhead, taking it underground and bringing it into all these old buildings. We did a lot of that in Libertyville. We did some of that in Barrington, and it is not easy. He wants to do it. He feels the passion to do it, and he's the one leading the charge. Guaranteed, and I've told a lot of the trustees and elected officials in Algonquin, you'll be very happy when it's over. And it takes a little while, and there's some pain, but you'll be really happy when it's over. Again, Bob was doing a lot of that. And that leads the way for this TIF redevelopment and setting the stage for a lot of things. We talked a lot about his staff. You've heard from his staff. Between Steve and Michelle, unbelievable staff members. I tried to hire Michelle away from Bob, but she made a really bad decision and stayed with him. And she could have worked here in Barrington, but she didn't. But it was a good thing for her. She's wonderful. Steve is wonderful. Jason, Vince, all you guys are unbelievable. And I know that Bob will talk about he couldn't do the things that he does without all of you. He means it, and it's from his heart. He's willing to take risks. Story that I told in the letter that we wrote, and it was a little paragraph that I penned in our letter. He was at the Fox Valley branch for APWA, and he's talking about full depth reclamation. Well, we could talk about that for hours, right? I mean, right? Get a cocktail, let's sit down and chat about that one. Woo! So anyhow, he was up there not talking about how to do it, but how it failed on a project that he was involved in and that he was in charge of. And I'm sitting there going, why would you want to stand up there and tell the world about how this project didn't work? That's Bob Mitchard. Hey, you know what? We did this. I want all of you to learn about what I did, what we did, and how it didn't work so you can learn. That's a leader. That's a top 10 leader. That's better than top 10. And by the way, the other 7 that applied for the top 10, they're very happy to have gotten it as well. So do the math. Anyhow, in APWA, I had to say that because my brother gave me shit about that in my thing. So nobody else said it, I had to say it, you know? So what can I say? APWA, branch officer, and he was the president. He doesn't want to go into the chapter thing, which he'd be a shoo-in to do. He'd be a great leader there. But hopefully he's going to retire soon. And he didn't want to be in a situation where he was teetering after those 5 years, but he'd have been there. He's been the golf chair and a co-chair of a lot of those things. He was one of the original guys at the Illinois Public Service Institute. He was one of the original founders of the Illinois Public Works Mutual Aid Network. He's not only one of the founders, but he's also one guy that practices it every single day. When somebody needs help somewhere in the state, Bob sends his people. He always sends his people. And you know why? Because when he needs people, they come to him right now. And that's what that's all about. Mutual aid. Bob Mitchard. Rhodes Scholar. I know Tim was the one who kind of prompted Bob to do that. Steve has taken it to another level, and I think he's going to skip over that one and go to comedy. But anyhow, who wants to do Rhodes stuff when you can stand up and do stand-up comedy? Anyhow, but Rhodes Scholar, unbelievable program. The committees he's been on, and then he served for Larry and I as co-chairs of the 2013 Congress, raised $700,000 with my brother Bill, and had an epic time. So Bob's been a friend for not our whole careers, but our careers have been paralleled in a lot of ways. There's been a couple of jobs that Bob and I were toe-to-toe on, and I ended up getting them. Which I didn't know about until I met him years later. One was with Tom Tolles. We wouldn't be here today if you didn't make that choice. But we also have a parallel because we share the miracle doctors that brought your kids into the world, and we never knew about that. Just talking to each other and our children as well, which is really something. I know that your dad and your mom would be extremely proud. I know that your sister is really proud. I guarantee your wife and your daughter and your son are extremely proud. We're all very proud. I'm going to leave you with one thing here. Bob always says something other than do things right. I've seen him at meetings where he says, "You guys are all smarter than me." And we kind of look around. And I thought about that. I've heard him say that a bunch of different times. But you know what? The team that's sitting at that table with him is the team that he brought in. And you know what? They're not smarter than him. He's smart because he brought them all to the table. He's smart because he coordinates their efforts. He's smarter than all of us because he gets it done, sees the vision, and keeps us on task, as well as his staff. He listens, he executes, and then he gets the job done. Bob, congratulations on an honor that is overdue, extremely well-deserved, and I'm really happy to be here and be part of it. Congratulations.
To be on time today, several times. Bob's got a lot of good advice. So next I'd like to introduce Gordy and Alyssa Mitchard.
Thank you. I promise I'll have this done by dinner time so we don't have to take another break. Unlike everyone else that has spoken yet today, they got to write their own speeches. My dad actually told me just what to say today. I just had to fill in the verbs and adjectives, which is fairly easy for me. When my dad actually asked me today to speak in light of him winning this prestigious award, we were at a local bar, shocking, and he said how much it would mean for him and how proud it would make him. And then he leaned in and said, "Gordy, there's going to be about 200 people you're going to have to speak to." Like, I'm out. Totally out. He goes, "Come on, you have to go. You have to be there. There's going to be an open bar." As that would entice me to come. Well, here I am. My dad knows me very well. He also knows me well enough to know that I would not pass up the opportunity to say a few words to help him celebrate being a top 10 Public Works Leader of the Year. Until about 4 months ago, I couldn't confidently say I understood the complete significance of the very important father-son relationship I had with my dad. Not because I didn't care, moreover I was busy being a kid, discovering pieces of myself along the way. During that time there were sports, camps, school, and multiple minimum wage jobs that gave me just enough money to afford unnecessary things. Starbucks coffee. My dad always said I lived a champagne life on a beer budget. Busch Light. I went to Iowa. We drank Busch there. I've realized there are many distractions that go with being a kid, a teenager, a young adult, and now arguably an adult. It wasn't often I allowed myself the time to value the moments that had been naturally building the great appreciation I have for my father. But through all the diversions of growing up, you end up with a certain bond, one that is frequently tested, as my dad well knows, as of late especially, although never broken, which my dad and I have recently proven to each other during a very transitional time in my life. A time in which his continuous understanding and unhindered mentorship speaks the fact that he's the greatest father someone could ask for. My relationship with my dad has not been one that is built off the curiosity nor eagerness to follow in his professional footsteps. With that comes a lack of understanding of what he does day to day as public works director for the village of Algonquin. It was when I was reading the letters of recommendation written by some of you here today that I began to realize the amount of work commitments he handles each day he's not on the golf course.
Or in the desert.
With you, Frank. Thank you for protecting my father. The titles he has held and projects he has completed is incredibly extensive, and I'm very proud to say so for someone who works from a golf cart. All joking aside, I don't think I ever need to holistically understand what my dad does day to day to know how incredibly proud I am of the accomplishments he has, all of which rightfully qualify him to win this award. It's amazing to look back when we had first lived in the house we've lived in for the past 25 years, that it was surrounded by cornfields everywhere. In fact, our street that we live on didn't go through. It was stopped by a stop sign and a cornfield. And now we live in Algonquin that has approximately 52 mattress stores. 53, excuse me. I'm very proud of that. Although I don't sleep so well. The past 34 years has allowed my dad to make a very meaningful impact on public works. This is apparent in several of the infrastructural changes in Algonquin. It's very apparent and talked about by the numerous people I've mutually met and been introduced to. A good percentage I have met through Algonquin's Founders Day over the years. It's my favorite time of year. It always reminds me of how bad at bags I actually am. I've entered that contest so many times and been out the first round every year. The festivities of the year are taken on a new location, conveniently in our backyard. Coincidence? I don't think so. I'm glad Founders has given me the opportunity to meet the great deal of people my dad has networked with in public works over the past years. And with each introduction, I gain a little insight into how incredible and influential my dad has proven to be. The conversations usually go one of two ways. They either speak very positively of him, or simply complain about a parkway tree that's dead and needs to be taken care of. I've been there. Fix it. It also never fails that somebody points out and mentions how much I look like my dad. Much thinner. But nonetheless look like him, and I'm sort of proud to be that way. And honestly, I've done the math and I've kind of figured it out here that if I had $1 for every time somebody has said that to me, I probably could have moved out by now. I know you're eager for me to do that, but Mom, she cooks too good of meals. So in concluding, all these coworkers, acquaintances, and friends, neighbors, are a profound testament of the great work my father has done for the village of Algonquin and public works as a whole. This award could not possibly be given to somebody who shows up for work and mindlessly puts the pen to the paper. For that, I am incredibly proud of my dad. Incredibly proud of my dad for extending beyond what is expected of him and becoming a public works top 10 leaders of the year. As much as he exceeds his expectations at work, he further exceeds his expectations of being a mentor, a best friend, an irritant, and most importantly, a father. He has allowed me to do and accomplish so much, and has selflessly given me the ability to live my best and most honest life. For that, I thank you, and I am proud of you. I just wanted to share a poem that my dad sent me that means a lot to me. She Had Blue Skin. It was written by Shel Silverstein, which my favorite book is when I was a kid, The Giving Tree. She had blue skin, and so did he. He kept it hid, and so did she. They searched for blue their whole life through, then passed right by and never knew. This award cannot be given to a more understanding, compassionate, and hardworking individual, one I am lucky to call my dad. Congratulations, Dad. Here's my awesome, much shorter sister.
And the favorite child.
The golden child.
Did you leave it on?
It's on. Trust me.
I don't know what he's talking about, shorter. I mean, I think my heels are high enough. Okay, so unlike my brother, I didn't really come with anything super organized. Not really on your schedules to speak. But I thought I'd get up here and say a few words. First of all, I'd like to start by saying, Gordy, that was an outstanding speech. Thank you so much for getting up here and doing that. I also would like to take a minute just to look around the room. There's a lot of familiar faces here, and that is so encouraging. I'd just like to thank each and every one of you for coming today. So many of you have been here to support me and my brother throughout our life, just through the love that you have for my dad and my mom. We couldn't have grown up in a better supportive system. And so I thank you for being here to recognize my dad in this time. I know that means a lot to him, it means a lot to us. So thank you for that. Couple of things that I wanted to touch on. Couldn't come completely unprepared. I am the favorite child.
You're not going to finish that piece of cake.
So a couple things just to touch on. Many of these things will not come as a shock to you about my father. I live in Nashville, Tennessee now. It's a long drive to think about what I would say today. And so, 3 things that my dad exemplifies that I think make him a great leader. Some of the things that have brought him here today. Generosity. I know most of you, or maybe not most, but several of you can attest to the fact that my dad is usually the first one to say, let me get that. He's always wanting to probably bite off more than he could probably chew on that. We can both thank him for helping us get through college. The generosity is outstanding. My dad and I, we have a few things in common. That is one that I certainly have struggled on. I'm as frugal as the day is long. In fact, I'm sure in these pictures up here, you can see I have the same exact dress on in that picture. So, he's taught me what it really means to give without thinking. Your friendships are absolutely priceless. And I think that's something that's been demonstrated outstandingly throughout my lifetime. So thank you for that. Also, several of you have gotten up here and spoke about relationships. It wasn't until I was driving here that I really realized that that is something that I actually got from him. It's something that I've known about myself for a long time. The first one to call up a friend and go on a coffee date. I guarantee you it's a rare chance you'll find my dad at home sitting alone on Friday afternoon. For as long as we grown up, our house was full of people. Every Friday, you better believe our neighbors were in the front yard. For as long as I could. And you know what? I don't think we realized how rare that was. Until you get up, you grow, you get out, and you realize that what you had all along was a whole hell of a lot better than a lot of people have it out there. So thank you for bringing us up in just an amazing supportive system. I think it's because you reach out, you really talk to people. I think it's the same thing. Has anyone ever been in an Uber with my dad?
Oh,
You do the
God.
same thing.
You'll
when
know
you're
her life
recovered. But he does it completely gracefully. And I think he does that with all his friends. Finding out what people are really about. And he kind of just pulls pieces out of you that you didn't really even realize were there. Last but not least, dedication. I was a cheerleader at Iowa. I can say that both my parents were at more of our home games than I could ever imagine. It's not cheap to get out there, to pay for the hotels. I grew up doing gymnastics. Gordy grew up doing travel hockey. We had parents that were in those stands every single time. And you know what? I think that same dedication is what he's exemplified in his work. So while I don't really know exactly all the different accomplishments that happened in the workplace, I can tell you that that is something that was through and through at work and at home. I can't tell you how many times I got put in the car thinking we were going to the grocery store, meanwhile we were going to look at like a sewer plant.
I just have to go real quick. I have to expect it. That's so true.
This is fun. Okay.
And it's like a broken tree. All right.
And last but not least, my dad and I were involved in a program through the YMCA when I was a kid called Indian Princesses. And my favorite memory, so we're all supposed to do this assignment with your tribe. You get up there, you do a very heartfelt little skit, right? Morals, values. We got up on stage and did a beautiful dance to Walk Like an Egyptian. Morals, yes. But I guarantee you, there was no tribe of girls that had more fun. So I pray that each one of you has gotten a piece of that from my dad. I work in healthcare. It's not always that fun, I promise you. I'm sure that public works cannot possibly be that fun all the time. But I pray that each one of you has gotten that through being with my dad, because I really think that, even if something was off or if that wasn't quite right, as long as you had fun doing it, you made some friends along the way, I guarantee that's what it's about. And Dad's brought that to everybody here, I think. So thank you so much for being here.
Beautiful, thank you for making me cry. Next up we have Jackie Mitchard, Bob's sister and award-winning author.
I don't want to trip on my coat. I'm not going to speak at length, don't worry. I only write long books. And I am a recluse and I don't even drink. I'm the designated driver, so I'm not the fun person in the family. I don't normally use notes when I speak, but I had to remember not to leave out any of the things my brother told me that I had to be sure to say about him. One time when we were arguing about something, my brother told me, "You're creative, but I'm practical. I'm more about skills than ideas, but I do have a sensitive side. Let's see who has the final word." but apparently I'm having the final word. There were two of us by the time my brother was born. We had an older brother who died very young. My mother said to me at that time, "We finally have the child we've always wanted." Fine, except she was saying that to me. I spent the next tens of dozens of years getting my brother out of trouble. When he was little, he was very skilled with tools. He sharpened a pencil to a lethal point and harpooned all the tropical fish in the tank. And when I told on him, my mother said, "I blame you. He's sensitive, and you probably made him nervous." Years later, I got an emergency phone call from my brother, who was then in college in Florida. He said he'd wrecked the transmission on his car by swerving to avoid two little kids who were running across the highway. After I'd interceded with my dad, who really went nuclear, years later I learned, in fact, that my brother had wrecked the transmission on his car because he drove over a mattress on the highway. No little kids were to be seen, and then he drove in reverse 25 miles to the exit. And when I asked him about this, he said, "I can't explain it." And I said, "Were there really little kids there, but they ran away?" And Bob said, "No, I mean, I can't explain how a car that messed up could drive 25 miles in reverse." I guess because our mother died young and our father was sort of a party animal, we grew up as a society of two. I was there when he married the only girl he ever loved, and when my excellent niece and nephew were born. And he was there when my 3 older children were born and when my first husband died young. And when I married again and all my other children arrived, Bob is their favorite uncle. And they all tell me that I need to relax and be more like him. This is true, what I'm going to say next. My youngest daughter said to me a few years ago, "You need to be more like Uncle Bobby. I have 4 words to say to you: blue cheese stuffed olives." 20 years ago, before my brother celebrated with me when my first novel hit the big time, he had read the whole thing well before Oprah Winfrey ever heard of it, and he still says it is the best novel he's ever read in his life. And to be fair, it is also the only novel he's ever read. When he asked me to speak at this event, he said, "Keep it light and breezy, light and funny and breezy." And a few days later, he called back and said, "I just want to remind you to keep this light and funny and breezy and not get too deep." And I promise. So let me just say this. Some of the most interesting and best times I've ever had with Bob have been riding around with him in his truck, looking at storm damage, easements, lights, little tiny trees, park turf, and I'm not kidding about this. He sees the lives beyond the structures. He sees the care and the pride and the pain. I've never known anyone who worked harder, who loved and understood the job more than Bob does. What he's doing is making the most of sacred space, the place where people live and where they feel safe with those they love. He never underestimates the importance of his job, which is why we're all here today. And he never stops thinking of ways to do his work more effectively, to innovate, to change things for the better without ever making them feel unfamiliar. He's like George Bailey in It's a Wonderful Life. He loves his village, he loves the lives of the people who live in it, his family, and hockey, and baseball, and blue cheese stuffed olives. He loves trees. He also does have a sensitive side. Once I was lost on this big campus, and Bob was trying to find me. We kept calling each other on our phones and saying, "What do you see now? What building do you see? What's the name of that building?" And then finally I called him one last time and I heard his phone, and it was playing the old Benny King song that goes, "When the night is dark and the land is cold and the moon is the only night we'll see, I won't cry, I won't cry, no, I won't be afraid, just as long as you stand by me." That's the ringtone on the phone when I call him. I'm so proud of you. You've contributed to your village and your region and your world and those around you. You've helped make mine a wonderful life. I don't have any olives right now, but I want all of you to join me in a toast that recalls that same old movie. Bob forces me and my children and his children and his nieces and nephews to sit through every year, whether we like it or not. To my little brother Bob, the richest man in town.
I'm old.
Go get a drink, everybody. All right, Bob's back, everybody. So, after yourselves, settle in. We're in the home stretch here. I just want to clarify one thing. After John's speech, John Hines said that I asked him about this award, and I did not. I did it on the sneak. I don't think he knew. Sandy was in the know a little bit, so I just want for the record. Yeah. He had no choice after he got the Fox Valley Branch Award. So, and then one other plug for one of Bob's many accomplishments. We have our Fox Valley Branch Golf Outing coming up on August 3rd, which he has been the co-chair of for many years. And I believe the number that he threw out for scholarship, money raised for scholarships for the Fox Valley Branch was upwards of almost $200,000. So I just want to give Bob a hand for his dedication to an excellent golf outing every year. Please practice your flippy cup because it will be another really good year. So without further ado, our last speaker will be Dave Lowry, who will be presenting the award to Bob Mitchard.
All right, we got to be out of here at 4. 20 seconds top. So, how do I follow any of this stuff? But I do, before I present the award, I do want to tell one quick story because many of the speakers touched on a little bit, and that's Bob's honesty. You never have to worry about what Bob's thinking because all you can do is ask him and he'll tell you. But we've golfed many times, and I'm not the world's best golfer by any stretch. So I'm on the tee, and we're all standing there, and I hit a shot, and Bob goes, "My God, that is the worst shot I've ever seen." And it probably was. Then he gets up and he hits the worst one. And he said, "I have to apologize. That's not the worst shot I've ever seen. That one." I've been doing this APWA board stuff for 9 years now, and this is always one of my favorite things to be able to do is be able to present these awards. I think Rich would agree that when we get to come and present this Top 10 award, especially because it is the pinnacle of the public works professional career. And John, you always steal my stuff. I mean, I'm supposed to talk about what the award means and everything, but that's been well represented here today. So, but it is an APWA award, but it's not a recognition of APWA service. It's a recognition of the body of work of the professional, and Bob certainly exemplifies that body of work. So, congratulations. So, without further ado, and on behalf of the board of directors, and with Rich Burning here as my witness, I'd like to present you your award, Bob. Come on up.
Good afternoon. Is it still afternoon? Good evening.
Do you have to go to the bathroom?
God, I'm so sorry about that. No, I'm not going to use this. I'm just going to scream. I don't want this. Thank you all for being here. Sorry this is going on so long, but you know what? All of this stuff is so awesome, and everybody here today is so awesome, and I'm going to take my time, and I've got less than 10 pages. First of all, I'd like to recognize at the Fox Valley Awards lunch during my acceptance speech, I recognized the changing demographic in our business. Thankfully, more women are pursuing roles in public works and civil engineering, and damn it, it's about time. I've worked for 34 years in a pretty male-dominated industry. In my opinion, women are better organized, more effective managers, and a wealth of talent and refreshing innovation as leaders in our industry. Nan Newland is here today. She epitomizes all of these qualities, and there is no better leader in the Chicago Metro chapter to be recognized as our first female recipient of this prestigious award. She was my co-honoree this year. Nan, please stand. Awesome. The first female in the entire chapter to ever get this award. I can't tell you how great that is. Thank you for being here today. When I received the award committee nomination roster, the details of all the nominations, I was shocked to see my name as the top 10 selection. The executive committee failed to have a nominee the prior year. We had discussed candidates and my name never came up. I'd like to thank Michelle Lipinski and the awards committee to have the confidence in my nomination. However, at the time, I had only heard about the nightmare of assembling this application. Can you give me that application, please? Give me the color one, thank you.
Anything else I can do for you?
Yeah. This is excruciating to put this together. Let me tell you, I spent many an afternoon and an evening on weekends putting this thing together. John Hines said, just sit down, make some bullet points on the things that you've done in your career. Well, I started the task with a brand new legal pad, and I started to write this stuff down with guarded optimism that I'd be successful, and ended up running out of space in that legal pad and went to a second tablet, like he said earlier. Once finished, I set out to turn those bullets into a story, much like my sister is a storyteller. I started to write these things down, and it got quite voluminous. The text turned out to be 30 type pages. I was limited to 20. That's a big problem. Fortunately, my sister was coming to town for her writers' forum. She saved the day, sat down, edited, cutted my excess, which there's a lot of excess, fixed my propensity for writing in passive voice. And I still don't understand how, when you talk about your history, you don't write in passive voice. She tried to explain it, it makes no sense to me. That's why I'm a public works director and not a writer. Once finished with the application, I tried to insert some photos, change the font size, put some borders. The document was clumsy, it was boring, it was horrible. Again, I turned to my top 10 mentor, John Hines, for help. Panic. In steps Michelle Harford, who's here today. She's my guardian angel of computer graphics, and really tipped it in by making this application into a thing of beauty in just 2 days. She's awesome. Michelle, can you come forward, please? this is just a little bit of appreciation for what you did. It's my wife's favorite chocolate place, and I hope you enjoy it. There's also another gift in there for you to enjoy.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. I worked 3 years right out of college for a consulting engineer, and not to rank on the consultants in the room, which everybody knows. Mike Kerr, where are you? You know, I can't stand civil engineers. It was really boring. I found it tedious and very unrewarding. I'm sorry to all you people in the room that are engineers.
Honesty.
My dad had taken a job as a public works director in the village of Westchester. When I was in high school and my mom was critically ill and passing away, he wanted to spend more time with her. I used to hang out in his office quite a bit, and frankly, I found the work fascinating and fulfilling. So with help from my dad, I found a director's position in North Riverside. I learned a lot there about quality customer service, and even more about politics and too much about near West suburban ethics. But I learned little about professional management. I was more of a superintendent than a true director, as it turned out. My first day there in North Riverside, I remember it like yesterday. I had to open a garage door to get to my desk. I pushed Mommy off the desk, and then Mommy, who was the cat, who didn't like me after that, used to leave these regurgitated hairballs on my chair every morning when I got there. The first day of work, I turned to Ken Lang. Where's Pee-wee? You remember Ken Lang? I turned to Ken, he goes, the place kind of runs itself, which was the most incredibly reactive statement I have ever heard. And that set my tempo for the rest of my career, to be proactive and do more than let the village run itself. I later became famous for that attitude in Algonquin when they made pictures of me. Just do it. Jumping to Lake Zurich significantly changed my career. I worked for a bulldog with a manager, John Dixon, a true professional with a strong pedigree and a sharp tongue and a 10 handicap. I learned about being a professional from him and being direct. He was really direct. I also learned a tremendous amount about government fiscal policy from a very patient man named Rich Rakowski, who took me under his wing and explained municipal budgets, policies, and financial management in great detail. I also had the incredible pleasure of working side by side with Victor Ramirez, a great public works leader in his own distinguished career. Victor, you're awesome. After a short stay in Lake Zurich, I took a job in my hometown of Algonquin and worked for Bill Gannick for 18 years. Not only was Bill a great boss and a manager, he was a great friend who taught me how to lead fairly and ethically in a very hectic environment of rapid growth and a culture change that at that time was a very challenging department with a multitude of problems, including mutual disdain between the residents and public works. It was horrible. Bill, thank you for your wise guidance throughout. I cherish the years we worked together. I'd like to recognize our current village manager. Tim's still here? He had to leave. For these folks over here, Tim has shepherded a change in management culture in Algonquin that has sometimes been frustrating, but exciting and refreshing at the same time. It has caused me to look introspectively and reinvent my management leadership style and stepping away from my traditional style that I was used to a more strategic format. Tim has a wonderful way of trusting me and allowing me to manage and lead my department, and I appreciate that. Algonquin's elected officials who are over here that I can't say enough about. Some of them are new in their roles. Some have been on the board since I hired on. In particular, our Mayor, John Schmidt. I've only worked for 2 mayors, as was stated earlier, and really only a handful of trustees in 23 years. The support and good governance that I've had in those years has been nothing but amazing. Not many directors in this room, I think, can say that. Some of my fellow department heads that are here today, I'd really like to thank them for helping me celebrate today. Thank you all for the opportunity that you've provided me. Thank you very much. Can I ask my Public Works team to stand, please? These people are the real reason that I'm here today. Gary, stand up. He's not here anymore, but he was there for many years. These people are all great leaders in their own right. They're creative, they're fun, they're patient with me at times, and collectively they provide incredible value for the village of Algonquin. My dad had a lot of weird statements he often used, and I resurrect them every once in a while. And one that always rings true to me is you got to have a belly laugh every day. And I think we do that at Algonquin Public Works. One of my unwritten rules, of which I have a few, is don't make my phone ring. And you know what? My phone doesn't ring because this team that you see here, they make it happen. They get it handled. I often stress the need to have vision. They like to refer to it as through the eyes of Bob. But if you travel through our village, it's blatantly obvious that they share and they're learning my vision and they excel at what they do. The photo on the cover of this application is there for a reason. And this plaque is not going to go in my office. It's going to go in the main hallway of our building, next to the dedication plaque of the building, where all of these people can share in this award because they deserve it. Thank you for making my job very good. I'm incredibly proud of each and every one of you. Thank you. You can sit down. Some mentors that I need to talk about. Being a mentor is an important part of being a leader. And there are some folks in this room today that I've mentored and others that have mentored me. Timmy Cutt, the bastard, is not here today. You know what? And where's Bubby? Tell him. Where's Bubby? Tell him. I'm a little pissed. This kid used to come in these dolphin shorts that he should have never worn. But the guy could comb your hair with a backhoe, and he's become a great leader. And I will say that here in front of everybody. He's smart, he does what needs to be done, and he learned a lot. And I hope he learned a little from me. Mike Brown, Mike, the director in Lake Zurich, he was a laborer when I worked there, but he had something special. And he had something, he asked a lot of questions, he was inquisitive, and now he's a great leader in Lake Zurich, and I'm very proud of him. Michael Cernak, this kid started working for me when he was 14 years old. He was too young, he lied to me. His dad was one of the coolest people I ever knew in my life. He was the police chief in North Riverside. Awesome guy. Michael Cernak has made me very proud. They weren't going to do shit for him in North Riverside, and they brought him to Lake Zurich. He's the operations superintendent in Lake Zurich now. Awesome. Very proud. Michelle Zimmerman, showed up at my door. I called the temp service and they said, we don't have anybody, sorry. And then they called me back 10 minutes later, you'll never believe this girl just walked in, she's perfect. We're sending her right over. She walked in, she shook my hand, and she's been there for 23 years. She's my right-hand man. Woman. She's kind of like a guy. But I taught her to read plans. I taught her how to put together budgets. And she's taught me a hell of a lot as well over time. She is very smart, very talented. What a massive talent. And she's trying to push me out my chair, but it's not that easy. Steve Ludwig and Jason Schutz. Steve, that was awesome. Your talk today was incredible. Where is he? There he is. Jason Schutz. These guys have worked their way up through the organization, and you know, deservedly so. Their diligence, their wherewithal in what they do, they're incredible people. It's awesome. I can't tell you how fortunate I am to have you guys on my team. My mentors in the profession, Frank Trapiccio, who beat the shit out of pancreatic cancer. I'm so glad to have you. Salzman, David Lowry, awesome. All great friends and cohorts in the business who I can always lean on for advice and consult. Thank you for being great professionals, leading by example and being honorable public servants throughout your careers. I can't say enough about you guys and the relationship that I've had with you. John Hines, my designated representative. Oh my God. What a pain in the ass. Through this process, I can't tell you. Pressing me tirelessly during this application process, editing the document when I'm trying to have coffee on a Saturday morning in my kitchen. You know, you got this red pen, he's so annoying. Carefully selecting this venue, the menu selections, the bar offerings. When Alyssa finally goes to get married, he's the wedding planner. Very detailed oriented, he just has a certain flair. All kidding aside, I couldn't and wouldn't have done it without him. Thank you so much, John, for being such a good friend. Incredible. Friends and family. As my sister would tell you, we have a very interesting extended family. When I attended Nan's celebration a couple weeks ago, it was awesome to see her relatives in attendance, which makes me very envious, to be sure. Our parents and grandparents have all passed, and most of our relatives are socially inept. Or incarcerated. So consider yourself better off today that they're not here. I do, however, take great solace in having so many friends and neighbors here today. They're really my adopted family. I'm very lucky. I know all their kids, their moms and dads, brothers and sisters, and they're always there to include us in their family get-togethers that we would otherwise not have the opportunity to enjoy, as most of Sandy's siblings and my sister live out of state. I even have one friend here today that I went to kindergarten with. We looked good in those dashing red blazers, didn't we, Randy? So, thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here today. It means the world to me. My family, this is where it's going to get hard. My incredibly smart and talented sister Jackie, who came all the way from Cape Cod for the day. She's spoken at a couple of APWA luncheons over the years for nothing, for free. And she's always been a big hit at those events. I love her so much, but I probably don't tell her that enough. So There you go, Jack. She's a few years my senior, but it depends on the source, on just how much she's my senior, but we'll leave that at that. But much of what I am is because of her. She and her friends were my babysitters as a child, and found great humor in stories about white gorillas named Charlie Barley that lived in my bedroom closet. I went to a circus at Santa's Village with my grandparents some years later, and a white gorilla, someone dressed in a gorilla suit, escaped from a cage and ran into the crowd at Santa's Village. And no one could believe that a 7-year-old boy could crawl that quickly under the legs of the audience and into the parking lot. My grandparents finally located me later in the back seat of their Pontiac. But Jackie's wonderful husband, Chris, is home with their 9 beautiful kids. I guess there's a few less. Some have married and some moved on to their own lives. I hope they're all proud of their Uncle Bobby, as I am of them. Thanks for being here today, Jack. God, it's so important to me. Alyssa, my brown-eyed girl, and a rock star in many ways. She's made me so proud. She's here today from Nashville, where she and my girlfriend Stella share a townhome that Alyssa owns.
Stella's an Australian Shepherd.
That's been getting to that. She's an Australian Shepherd. Alyssa has a master's in nursing and keeps moving up at Vanderbilt Hospital Organization through her hard work, and she's currently a nurse educator on her unit. She's also instructed nursing at Belmont University. She's awesome. Thanks, sweetie, for driving all this way to spend Father's Day with me. Gordy, my second favorite child. Just ask him.
Somebody's got to do it, Gordy.
I wanted him to represent the family today by speaking. I thought he did an incredible job. I knew it would make him nervous, and but I had nothing but confidence in him that he'd make the right choice, that I had made the right choice, and I did. He's always excelled in whatever he's done, whether it's artwork, school, always making the top hockey team, playing the state finals in high school golf as a junior. And then as a senior, just like his dad, his brain fell out. He works in physical therapy, and he refs high-level junior hockey. I'm very proud of that. And I'm proud that he was able to come out this year for his own personal happiness. His friend Steve is here today. What a great guy Steve is. I'm glad that he hangs out with us now. Gordy, I love you and thanks for being you. Lastly, my wife Sandy. How she's put up with me for 45 years is beyond me. Like every couple, we've had our highs and lows in our relationship, but we always seem to come out better on the other side than we were before. She has supported me unwaveringly throughout my career, even when I couldn't come home for days at a time during the early years because emergencies took precedence. She allowed me to be dedicated to my craft and kept her dissatisfaction hidden, while always understanding, at least for the most part. She's been a great partner, and much of this award should be dedicated to her. She has heard and listened to all my horror stories, and occasionally some successes. And I'm sure she could probably walk in and run any public works department as well. In closing, I would like to thank the Fox Valley branch, the Chicago Metro chapter, the National APWA for this incredible honor, even though I still feel undeserving of such accolades and even being placed in the same company with the names there on the back of your program. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for attending today and sharing this special day with me. Feel free to come downstairs, watch a little of the US Open with me, and maybe have a cocktail or two. I may even buy.
Go to the bathroom.
Thank you. I gotta pee again. Thank you all so much for this awesome honor and being here today. It means so much to me.